Good morning. Good morning. Just about ready to get started here. Everybody settled in. Got your coffee. Got my two regular guys cup. Sublimation too, by the way. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Good morning. Hello. And Alan, good to see you this morning. Hope you're doing well. All right, it's 10 o'clock. You guys ready to do this? All right, here we go. I'm going to get this started.
Welcome to Small Business Saturday.
Welcome to Small Business Saturday's video series with your host and my husband.
And my dad, Aaron Montgomery.
Join the conversation.
Let's talk some business.
All right. Well, welcome in, everybody. My name is Aaron Montgomery. For those that you didn't know when you were watching from the aaronmontgomery.info Facebook page. But anyways, glad to see a couple people checking in this morning. Thanks so much for joining me here. I'm doing something a little bit different, not necessarily different, but got some content from a different location, and I was really excited by that. I have for a number of years been writing for Printwear and A&E magazines over at the NBM group over there. And one of the other things I do for them is they'll send me some questions and I will write some answers, and they post those in their weekly newsletters. And so really good stuff. I actually got some questions from the folks over at Printwear Magazine, and they were kind enough to let me answer them here for you. And then we'll put the written version into their newsletters. So hopefully everybody is ready to dive in. I've got 3 questions, so I want to get through this and still be in our 15 to 30 minute window that I like to keep it to, so I'm not wasting everybody's Saturday morning. Hopefully you guys, if you do have any other questions, though, I'm happy to go long. I want it to go long because you guys want it to go long, not because I rambled on. So are we ready to dive in? Anybody viewing live, please feel free to ask questions, put your comments in, and looking for interaction. Love the interaction and excited to do that. All right, guys. Well, let's dive in. Let's start with number 1 here. All right. First question was, are there any fabric or image color restrictions involved with sublimation? So those of us, or not those of us, but those folks that are brand new to sublimation and haven't done sublimation before, there are a couple of things. In my mind, there's really only 2 drawbacks to sublimation, and I think for the most part, you can overcome a lot of that stuff by being creative. But the 2 drawbacks to sublimation is there's no white ink in the process, which means I can't really do a black shirt, a dark shirt, or things like that. But there are some ways to go about that we'll talk about a little bit later. And then the second thing is the ink doesn't doesn't adhere into the molecules of cotton. So I can't print on cotton. And we're going to talk in just a second about those folks that claim to be able to print on cotton. But with sublimation, those are the 2 big things. There's no white ink, there's no cotton. So, for example, if we're trying to print on colors other than white, this is going to affect the outcome of my prints. So if I'm printing a blue onto a yellow shirt, what do yellow and blue make? My 7-year-old knows. I should bring him in here. Yellow and blue make green. So that blue background is going to end up green on yellow. If you have nice white puffy clouds in your image and you print it onto a light blue shirt, those clouds are going to be light blue. So there's just no white ink. There's no way to cover the garment that you're printing. So you just have to design accordingly. If you're going to print onto a shirt that's a color other than white, you just need to make sure that you're factoring in how that shirt's going to change the colors. So I don't really want to put yellow on a red shirt, but I can print black onto a red shirt and that looks just fine. So just got to be thinking about that in your offering. And then, like I said, the other thing is you can't print on cotton. So the inks only transfer to polyester. So if you have a 50-50 shirt, it only stays on the polyester portion, and it might actually look somewhat decent on that first print, but after it gets washed for the first time, that ink that's just sitting on the top is going to wash out of the cotton. It doesn't wash out of the polyester side. So if I'm doing 100% polyester shirt, it's going to look the same after one wash, after 1,000 washes. But if there's cotton, you are going to kind of have a little bit of a vintage look if you're doing a 50-50 shirt, for example. So I wouldn't go any further than a 50-50. The more polyester content you have in the garment that you're printing onto, the better that your image is going to be, the more pop, the more vibrancy you're going to have. So going to 50-50, that shirt's probably a little less expensive than a 100% polyester shirt. You're going to have a vintage look. So why wouldn't you charge more for that, right? That's the wisdom. Charge more for something that's less expensive. Well, that is actually what I would do. I would charge more for that vintage look because people like that vintage look. The perceived value is greater there. So there you go. Now I just saved you some money. So perfect. All right. And then I did mention that, there are some papers being sold out on the marketplace that claim to be sublimation onto cotton. And now I'm not talking down about them. I know they're getting a ton better. I know the technology continues to improve all the time. Lots of really smart people are working on making this happen. And there's some pretty reputable companies out there selling these products, and for good reason. I think that they're fine. But my disclaimer is that is not true sublimation. That is, you're still sticking something on top, and you're not actually making it part of the cotton. And that's one of the advantages to sublimation that we're going to talk about here in just a second. So sublimation onto cotton, not possible. No white ink, so you have to design around those things, or stick with light garments. And so there's number one. That's question number one. So let's hide that and go to question number two. All right. What can apparel sublimation do for my shop or my business? Well, I think, to me, as everybody knows, I'm a pretty big proponent and fan of sublimation. And, so adding sublimation in general to me can bring a whole new level of opportunities. And once you start offering apparel, that also checks a pretty unique box compared to others that are screen printers or DTG printers or things like that. You get into such a whole new opportunity there that I think it brings some pretty big advantages. Is it going to replace those other things? Absolutely not. That's it's an add-on piece. Now you can have just a sublimation business, and that's just fine. But if you're already an apparel decorator, I'm not saying you need to throw out the rest of your equipment and send your ink manufacturer down the street. But what I am saying is this does open up a new world, and it makes you have to think differently about how you're offering certain things and how you're listening to your customers. So here's some of the things to me that make sublimation such a cool, unique opportunity for current garment decorators. First and foremost, super fast turnarounds. It's completely digital, so you're printing and pressing. I literally, if I have a design ready to go, I literally could have a shirt ready for you in 1-2 minutes tops. So while you wait, kind of garments, that's a great, unique market. People are willing to pay a premium for something if they can get their picture printed onto something. So think about events or pop-up shops or retail locations where people walk in. You're in a resort location, and it's the family picture with whatever, Martha's Vineyard, and they get that while they wait. I mean, that's a huge opportunity. So that's number one. I think the second thing is you can offer some different kinds of garments that to a lot of people have a much higher perceived value. With sublimation, we talked about the fact that true sublimation does actually bond to the polyester. I don't know if we actually did talk about that, but that is the case. It actually bonds to polyester. So that ink is permanent. Like I said, one wash, 1,000 washes, that ink is going to be there as long as that garment is in use. So there's no fading. And then the other part about it is there's no feel, there's no hand, is what some people call it. But the ink, if you were to close your eyes and rub your hand across where the ink is, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the printed and the non-printed part. And that's something that people perceive as a high value. Instead of rubbing their hand across it and feeling kind of not a heavy, but a plastisol feel, feeling a transfer, feeling vinyl. Some people don't really like that crackly, heavy feel. So, sports jerseys, for example, you really don't want any extra heavy, sticky stuff on there. You want it to be light and breathable and not feel it. So your perceived values really go up because of those things. You have permanent ink and no fading. And then the next factor here that I think sublimation can do for an apparel shop is it allows you to get creative. It allows you to literally think outside of your typical print box. So, a DTG printer, you got either a 16 by 20, 10 by 12, whatever the case may be. And you're, for the most part, you're kind of right in the middle of the shirt, full back, something like that. Screen printing the same way. You can get a little creative, but not like sublimation. Sublimation, I can decorate a collar really easily. I can, sleeves, shoulders, sides. If I'm creative enough, I can make an all over look and feel print on a garment with just having a 16 by 20 press or even a 10 by 12 press. Something small, hobby press. I can create all of our garments that I can sell for $50-$60 just by getting creative and decorating in lots of different fun places. So, I think that's another advantage. It kind of gives you an ability to really kind of play around with things, and you're not having to set up screens or try to figure out jigs or anything like that. You're just pressing for 35 to 40 seconds. And then I think the last piece that I want to share is you're no longer offering just a t-shirt. Now you can talk about moisture wicking as a poly. You can talk about athleisure. You can talk about, these performance wear kind of things, because that's what polyester is. Polyester is all those things. If you ever heard of Under Armour, Under Armour is just 100% poly garment. And, so the technology that is available in polyester garments these days, there's polyester garments out there that are UV, meaning they block the UV rays. So, there's a company out there making a killing on Amazon right now, selling to sports fishermen and people like that. And they're selling it as a high-end garment that's UV blocking. So when they're out there in the sun all day, I know most garments will protect us some, but it does not completely block out those harmful UV rays in a cotton situation. But this polyester does. So now you're offering something that, you go from charging $7 to $10 for a t-shirt into $20, $30, $40 for performance wear. So those are things that sublimation can do for your apparel shop. All right, so let's go to the third and final question. If you are viewing and checking this out, if you have questions or you have comments, things you want to share, please feel free to do that in the comments section, and I will pop them up on screen, and we'll talk about it. All right. So really what we've been talking about so far has mainly been, in the small format. And hey, I haven't talked to Misha in a long time. Misha, how are you? Good to see you. Thanks for checking us out. Love to catch up with you sometime soon. All right. Sorry, I got off track. An old friend of mine, that great guy. And I think he's still with Folex. I'll have to ask him. That's how bad of a friend I am. But anyhow, all right, guys, let's get back to this here. So like I said, we've been mainly talking about small format stuff and could be wide format too. But the other question is, what are some advantages, disadvantages of all over sublimation? And I've got a couple examples here of all over sublimation. See if I can do this and show it in the camera. All right. So this shirt there started out white, and we decorated the entire thing. And so that's what an all over sublimation is. We're taking a white garment, we're going to decorate the entire thing front and back and completely change the color of it. So let's start off with some of the disadvantages. Because there's not too many, and I think we can overcome them. But the biggest disadvantage for doing an all over garment that's already pre-sewn is something that we in the industry call smiles. And the reason we call it a smile is you don't want to sell something that's a blemish or a crease or something like that. What you want to do is you want to sell smiles. We see smiles are a lot easier to sell than blemishes. But what smiles are places in the garment, and I'm going to try to show you on this. In fact, because there's a lot of smiles on this. So this is under the arm. Because of a shirt not being a tee completely, a t-shirt, even though we call it that, our arms don't go like this straight out. Our arms actually rest down. So a comfortable shirt has to kind of be down a little bit. And what that does is that causes some bunching under the arms, your collar areas and places like that. You're going to have these smiles. You're going to have these things that just aren't completely covering the garment. And the way to handle that is to design accordingly. So you've got some softness there. You've got some things, and you sell that as a unique feature. So every shirt is going to be unique to that user. I've seen some fashion brands that actually go out of their way to add extra smiles to their garments to just give it that unique look and feel. So, so that's one of the disadvantages. Is eliminating those smiles is extremely difficult. Even the really high-end folks that have been sublimating on all of our garments for a long time, even the people holding the patent to that process, have challenges where they're still going to have some of that, and you can overcome that with shirt construction and just really kind of understanding the process. And then the second disadvantage is the equipment investment can be quite large, and it might scare some folks off. So to be able to do an all over garment, I need 44/64 as far as a press. If I'm going to be doing a lot of all over garments, I probably need top and bottom heat. So that way I'm pressing one time as opposed to two times and kind of changing the colors from one side to the next. And so, that equipment, that heat press can run in the, bottom level $20,000-$30,000 range, but probably if you're doing dual heat, air automatic, all that kind of fun stuff, you're in the $50,000-$60,000 range, which, seems like a lot of money, but it's easy to make that back. You finance that and you're good to go. So your equipment investment is a bit of a challenge up front. I would say to folks that are wanting to get into all over sublimation that maybe you want to start off with a contractor, somebody to help you grow your market before you're ready to make that investment. So doing stuff like that is probably the way to go. Now let's get to the advantages, the fun part. The advantages here is there's a great profit margin. This garment probably that I was showing here, or here's another one. Should have unfolded it in advance, but so a youth sports piece, that garment probably is going to cost you $10. Let's just say round number, $10 to make, depending on what the brand of shirt and all that kind of fun stuff is. And that probably is going to sell for at least $30, maybe $40, probably $50. So that's a nice profit margin on just one shirt. So that's number one. That's one of the first advantages. Secondly, that all over print look is such a unique look. And it's very sought after. People are really looking for those things. Sublimation is a word that's actually becoming part of the normal conversation of everyday folks, not just those of us in the industry. So I think you can find business very easily. In fact, if you're already an apparel decorator, I bet you a lot of your current customers would love to also have some all over garments. And then the next thing is we talked about early on that you can't print onto dark shirts. Well, this started off white and it became a dark shirt. So, we can make dark garments with this process. So that's another advantage. The thing beyond that is it opens up an entire new world to you as well. So we're talking apparel and we're doing some of that, but you've got that equipment now. Now you can do things like, oh, here's a car floor mat. Beach towels, baby blankets. I mean, think about all of these wide format things that you can personalize and decorate now by being able to offer all over sublimation. Well, now we can offer other things too. So, and then last but not least, we are going to need a bigger printer. But in the long run, that bigger printer is going to reduce your consumable costs overall. So, small format desktop printer, you're looking at about $2,500 a liter for ink. You're just buying it in little cartridges, so you're not paying $2,500 at a pop. But you're looking at some pretty big numbers there when you start doing the math. When you get into wide format, 44 inches and above, your ink costs now are in the $115 range, $100 range, or heck, $90 range. I know people buying it at $75 if they're buying it in enough quantity. So think about that difference, $2,500 versus $75 for your ink. So your consumable cost is going to come down. So there we go. Those are the 3 questions and the answers. And Misha said, doing very fine, like your podcast, catching up with you soon. Oh, man, what a nice guy. I missed talking to you, Misha. I hope everything's going well. And yes, I would love to catch up with you soon. All right, guys. Well, what questions, what other things you got going on that you want to talk about here before we call this a morning? Anything? All right. Well, here's the deal. I would love for you guys to share this with your friends. I've been trying to work the hashtag SBS video. Small Business Saturdays is what that stands for. So please share this with your friends, and hopefully, like I said, I want to make this something that we can interact with every Saturday morning. Make it a meeting place. Let's get everybody together. Let's talk decoration. Let's talk small business. We don't have to just talk decoration. I love talking about other things that work for businesses across the board. So, number 1, please share this with your friends. Number 2 is, I want you to sign up for my newsletter if you haven't done that already. My newsletter goes out about once a month. It's that time. So one of my projects for today is to get that with some good information and wrapped up for you. So now's your chance to get signed up. If you just go to aaronmontgomery.info/get-connected and fill in as much as you can there for me, or as much as you're willing to, and that'll help me send you the right information at the right times. Okay, everybody, thanks so much for tuning in, and let's make sure that we get out there and work on our small businesses and have a great week.